America's #1.
Police in Melbourne, Australia clashed with demonstrators supporting tennis superstar Novak Djokovic following a court's decision to allow him to at least temporarily stay in Australia and compete in the Australian Open. The large crowd of supporters danced around a black car that may have been carrying the tennis star away from his lawyer's office. Tonight, we're learning more about that horrific, deadly high-rise apartment fire in New York City. Most of the victims in the building killed by smoke inhalation. And New York City's mayor is praising the heroes, the firefighters with empty oxygen tanks pushing through the smoke to save lives. The Omicron surge still showing no signs of letting up as the nation's hospitals approach a breaking point. This is roughly 668,000 Americans are testing positive for COVID-19 each week. Also, the debate over schools now enters a second week in Chicago, a fourth straight day of no classes there as the teachers union fights with the city over safe conditions. And out sick, the new report on just how many Americans may miss work this week because of COVID. And our in-depth report on extremism in the military. Dozens of current and former service members participated in January 6th. What's being done to prevent possible extremists from enlisting in the first place?
This is where everything is going to start at. The people that's coming in right now are going to be the people that's leading us in about 20 years, 15 years down the line.
We're learning more tonight about the sudden and shocking death of actor and comedian Bob Saget, found dead in his hotel room shortly after performing in Orlando. The final videos from his last night on stage and the tributes from close friends and former co-stars.
Bob was awesomely complex. I mean, everything was funny to him, yet he took the art of comedy dead seriously.
Tonight, brutal cold, the temperature plunge ushering in some of the coldest air in years across the country tonight. Our Ginger Z times out this Arctic blast. And tonight, pulling back the curtain on one of TV's most recognizable voices, not many would guess that the voice of 10-year-old Bart Simpson is in fact a grown woman.
He was described as a 10-year-old school-hating underachiever and proud of it, and it's just like, oh, you have my heart, Bart.
Love to hear that voice. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Nearly 2 years into this pandemic, we begin a new week and a new COVID record. This time, a record number of Americans are being hospitalized after becoming infected with COVID. More than 141,000 people nationwide. Many hospital officials tell ABC News the sickest patients are the unvaccinated. For example, if you're in Virginia, if you're unvaccinated, you are more than 4 times more likely to be hospitalized. The Omicron surge is not only putting hospitals at the brink, it's sidelining healthcare workers when they are most needed. A record 25% of the country's hospitals have reported a critical staffing shortage. It's so bad, in fact, California's Department of Health issued new guidelines for healthcare workers who test positive. Listen to this. It allows them to return to work without isolating or testing negative as long as they have no symptoms. And tonight, the crisis in America's classrooms is showing no signs of letting up. 580,000 new children tested positive for COVID just in the past week. And frustration is growing among parents as Chicago's schools were shut down for a 4th straight day today. Many schools weighing difficult decisions about remote learning, and many of us just exhausted by it all. Stephanie Ramos leads us off tonight.
Tonight, the number of COVID-positive Americans in hospitals now reaching a new pandemic record. More than 141,000 patients pushing hospitals to the brink of collapse.
This surge that we're experiencing now is the largest volume of patients that have been the sickest. So in many ways, this has been the worst.
In New Jersey, the number of patients in the ICU and needing ventilators doubling since Christmas to levels not seen since May of 2020.
We're in the thick of this latest fight against the Omicron tsunami washing across the state.
And now deaths are climbing too. 1,500 Americans are dying of COVID every day, a 34% increase in the last week. And even with a less severe Omicron variant, the sheer number of infections is overwhelming hospitals.
Our health systems were just never designed for an epidemic of this magnitude. And so unfortunately, we will bring our health systems to collapse if we don't figure out a way to keep transmission down in the community.
But with infections spiking, at least 1 in 4 hospitals across the country report they're facing a critical staffing shortage. It's why California is changing its rules to allow asymptomatic healthcare workers who test positive to return without isolating or testing negative. But the nurses union and other workers are calling that move dangerous.
We're in this industry to care for others. You know, that's the root word right there. And yet we are asking to put others at potential harm.
And in Los Angeles, there is worry of staffing shortages as schools reopen tomorrow. Students and staff have to test negative, but 62,000 tests have already come back positive.
People are having a hard time. People are afraid. This is a tough situation to be in.
Tonight, new COVID cases among children spiking to 580,000 cases, up 78% in the last week. In Chicago, classes canceled for a 4th day after a stalemate between the city and teachers. The union accusing the mayor of refusing to compromise on expanded testing and remote learning.
The mayor's being relentless, but she's being relentlessly stupid. She's being relentlessly stubborn.
As schools and workplaces push for higher quality masks, the latest research done before Omicron shows the dramatic difference an upgraded mask can make. Studies estimated for 2 people wearing cloth masks, it can take about a half hour to spread the virus from one infected person to an uninfected person in the same room. If they are both wearing surgical masks, it can take about an hour. And if they're both wearing N95 masks, it can take about 25 hours to cause an infection.
The higher grade masks are really going to protect people because they not only have a more proper fit, they have a better seal, but they also have a better filtration device, and they have an electrostatic potential to actually repel away the virus.
The quality of those masks so important. Stephanie Ramos joins us now. And Stephanie, the White House had initially promised to send out 500 million rapid tests starting in January. What's the latest on that?
So, Lindsay, we've learned that the first tests will go out at the end of January, but by the time all 500 million tests are sent out, the Omicron peak could be on the decline. So in the meantime, starting this Saturday, Americans can buy up to 8 at-home rapid tests per month and get reimbursed by insurance. Just make sure to keep that receipt. Lindsay.
There is some good news there. Stephanie Ramos, our thanks to you. And next to that horrific fire here in New York, among the at least 17 killed, 8 of them children. And now the tough questions. Could this death toll have been avoided? What more could have been done? Janae Norman is on the scene for us tonight.
Tonight, as more than a dozen people fight for their lives, we're getting a first look inside the torched New York City apartment where that horrific fire started, killing 17 people, including 8 children. These images published by DailyMail.com showing the destruction, twisted metal, incinerated furniture, ash and debris covering everything.
My kids scream, say fire, fire.
Mamadou Wagwe lived there with his wife and 8 children. He says his kids woke him up saying their apartment was on fire. He ran through flames to save one of his daughters.
Oh, it's a lot of smoke. You can't see nothing everywhere. Big smoke. Dark, you can't see nothing.
The fire erupting around 11 Sunday morning. More than 200 firefighters racing to the scene, arriving in minutes.
Fire is on the 3rd floor of a 19-story occupied MD.
Families terrified by the billowing smoke outside their windows.
Officials tonight believe a space heater ignited the inferno, and they're also looking at 2 open doors, including one in that apartment where you see the charring around the window. That's where the fire started. Now the center of this investigation.
This is an unspeakable tragedy.
By law, all city apartment buildings are required to have self-closing doors. The mayor saying the door to the apartment where the fire started may have had a maintenance issue, failing to close on its own when the family fled, allowing thick black smoke to rapidly spread throughout this 19-story building.
I dropped on my knees and started to pray to God and ask God, please help us, help us. It was too much.
Firefighters rescuing residents, even young babies on ladders, searching for survivors in the choking smoke, even after many of their oxygen tanks ran out. A woman named Renee on the 19th floor put a white towel out her window, alerting firefighters.
I heard a banging on the door, and it was a firefighter. It was just like an angel knocking on my door.
And tonight, some families still searching for loved ones.
Like my cousin, I heard that his 3 children passed away, but we don't know where the wife is. I don't know where's my cousin and his wife. Yeah, now I'm trying to go to the hospitals and look for them.
People still searching for loved ones. Janae Norman joins us now. Janae, what else have you learned about the victims, including the children?
Well, Lindsay, we know some of the terrified residents tried to make it out of the building, but were overwhelmed by smoke. Firefighters finding people in stairwells on every floor of this high rise. And we've learned that those 8 children who died ranged in age from 12 to just 4 years old. But a little bit of good news that we have just learned tonight. Authorities saying those who live on the upper floors will be able to return home as early as tonight. Lindsay.
Just heartbreaking overall. Janae Norman, our thanks to you. We turn overseas now. The showdown over Ukraine and the high-stakes talks today between Russia, the U.S., and European officials aimed at reducing tensions and deterring Russian leader Vladimir Putin from invading Ukraine. But the sides appeared to have made very little progress today at the start of a critical week of diplomacy. Here's ABC News' senior foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell.
Tonight, the first round of crisis talks between Russia and America over Ukraine and NATO expansion ending with little progress. The US side saying the meeting was frank and forthright, but that real negotiations haven't even begun. The Russian side more belligerent, saying no progress was made and demanding guarantees that Ukraine will never join NATO, something America calls a non-starter.
We need ironclad, waterproof, bulletproof, legally binding guarantees never ever becoming member of NATO.
Russia massing 100,000 troops on Ukraine's borders and backing rebels in the east. As we saw firsthand, the conflict still very much alive.
You hear the sound of rapid automatic gunfire there. They're telling us to go.
And unless these talks succeed, there are real fears it'll escalate further with Russian troops invading.
And Ian Pannell joins us now. Ian, there really seems to be this dangerous gulf between both sides here.
Yeah, there really does. I mean, they're both setting out fairly implacable positions. There doesn't seem to be much crossover, crucially, I think, for the Russians. And to be fair to Vladimir Putin, it's effectively pressure that the Kremlin has created that's led to these talks taking place with those 100,000 troops massed on the border. For the Kremlin, this is something of a red line. They want guarantees, cast iron legal guarantees, that Ukraine, and now they've added Georgia as well, will not join NATO. The United States and NATO have made it very clear that they won't give such guarantees because it's down to the territorial integrity of each country, and any country can join whatever alliances it wants. That's the viewpoint of the delegation. Now, there's no grey area there, there's no crossover, there's no meeting of minds, and that is the position as has been laid out today. The question is that really what Russia wants, or is it going to accept, for example, the idea of a reduction in the number of military exercises that are carried out in Eastern Europe, something that has been mooted, and possibly some concession, for example, rejoining the missile treaty agreement that the Trump administration withdrew from. If that's enough, then the sting will be taken out of the tail. If it isn't, then that threat of potential military action still hangs over this crisis.
And Ian, we're talking about Ukraine, but it's fair to say that the crisis that we saw play out in Kazakhstan last week, with security forces being given shoot-to-kill orders and Russian forces helping to support their Kazakhstan allies, that can't make diplomacy any easier.
No, that's true. I mean, just when you've got a major crisis in one large former Soviet state, you now have another, this one in Kazakhstan, which seems to be largely under control. But yes, the president did not pull his punches. He said he ordered his troops to shoot to kill without warning. Secretary of State Blinken was asked about that on This Week on Sunday with George Stephanopoulos. He made it clear that this was something that he condemned. But up until now, the U.S. administration has been fairly on the back foot, if you like. I mean, it really hasn't wanted to get too involved in Kazakhstan, not least because it's caught in this difficult position because the protesters used violence. In the wake of the anniversary of the insurrection on Capitol Hill, he couldn't be seen to be supporting some kind of uprising that used violence. On the same side, it also doesn't want to stand to one side and just allow Russia to have its way. Secretary of State Blinken warning, for example, that once you allow the Russians into your house, it's much more difficult to get them to leave. Lindsay.
Right. Ian Pannell, our thanks to you. Now to the sudden death of beloved actor and comedian Bob Saget. Tonight we're learning more how a hotel security guard was called in to make a wellness check, what he found, and the results of the preliminary autopsy just in. Also tonight, the heart-wrenching words of his widow. Here's ABC's chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman.
Tonight, new details on the death of Bob Saget. Authorities revealing it was his family who called police in Florida after they couldn't reach the actor Sunday morning following a stand-up performance in Ponte Vedra Beach. A security guard repeatedly knocking on his hotel room door, calling police after finding the actor unresponsive.
The security officer found the guest not breathing, no pulse.
A police report saying he was found lying on his back on the bed. His left arm was across his chest, while his right arm was resting on the bed. There was no sign of foul play, trauma, or drugs. His wife tonight saying, "Bob was my absolute everything. I am so completely shattered and in disbelief." With his trademark grin and those goofy jokes, Bob Saget became America's dad as Danny Tanner, the widowed father of 3 daughters on the ABC sitcom Full House.
It is now 0700, and it's time to attack the enemy. Grease, grime, slime, sludge, and that's just Joey's room.
And he kept the laughs coming on America's Funniest Home Videos.
Honey, you know that migraine headache you had this morning? Well, it'll be home in an hour.
Co-stars and fellow comedians paying tribute.
You don't have to go through this alone.
John Stamos, who played Saget's brother-in-law on Full House, tweeting, "I am broken. I am gutted. I'm in complete and utter shock. I will never, ever have another friend like him. I love you so much, Bobby." Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, who grew up on the set, saying Bob was the most loving, compassionate, and generous man.
Bob Saget, how about it? All right, Bobby, here we are now.
Saget got his start in stand-up comedy, where he was hardly the squeaky clean dad. His jokes, often raunchy.
I'm not funny, but I am quick.
They were surprised that he could talk dirty or sick or anything, and people who knew him weren't at all surprised by this.
After that performance on Saturday, which would be his last, he seemed energized, tweeting, "I had no idea I did a 2-hour set tonight. I'm happily addicted again to this." Humor was his lifeblood, as were his real and TV families.
I love you, Angel.
Jodie Sweetin, who played Saget's middle daughter on the show, adding, "We never missed a chance to tell each other, I love you. I would always say, you're the best TV dad ever." And he was. I'll miss you, Bob.
Real father figure both on and off air. Matt Gutman joins us. Now, Matt, is there anything more that you're learning about how he died?
With the tribute still coming in, Lindsay, the medical examiner in Florida said it did conduct an autopsy on Saget today, said it wouldn't reveal the results of that autopsy or the manner or cause of death until after the investigation is fully completed, probably in about 10 to 12 weeks. But as with the police there in Orlando, they said at this point there is no evidence of either foul play or drug abuse. Lindsay.
Matt Gutman, our thanks to you. And joining us now to talk about the life and legacy of Bob Saget is Mike Young, who is Bob's stand-up touring partner and dear friend. Mike posted a picture of him with Bob on Instagram, in part saying the tears will come and go for a long time. We spoke nearly every day. We worked nearly every week for 10 years. We will watch out for Kelly and check in on the kids, Bob, I promise. And Mike, we thank you so much for coming on the show and of course, want to give our condolences to you. Just start off by asking how you're holding up.
Pretty terrible, actually. It's shocking. It's, you know, nobody's holding up great, but we're gonna go forward for Bob, and we're gonna honor his memory, and we're gonna do the best we can, and we're gonna turn pain into comedy like he would have done and like he did his whole life, and we're gonna do the best and march on for him, because Bob was just a great guy, and he was a mentor to me, and we toured together for a long time.
And you say show the world who Bob was. For those who didn't have a chance to know him intimately, personally, who would you say he was?
I would say Bob was awesomely complex. I mean, everything was funny to him, yet he took the art of comedy dead seriously. And he loved the craft, and he loved the crowds, And he really did take every aspect of it seriously. So where, you would think a guy like Bob didn't need to be on the road all the time. He loved the road. He loved the audience. He checked it, sound checked, to make sure the sound was on point. He made sure every aspect of the lighting was in check. And he really was on top of his game, even at this stage. He was on top of everything.
And still doing what he loved right up to the end with the stand-up on Saturday night. Have you had a chance to speak with his wife and daughters?
Yeah, I have. And, it's a shock to all of them. And I told Kelly that we're going to be there for her and try to hold her up through this tough, incredibly difficult time. I talked to his daughters, who they were everything to him, and his wife and kids, they were just everything. So he spent, whatever time he wasn't on stage doing his thing or cracking jokes after the show or hanging out, he really just spent that time making sure they were okay.
And based on that, so many will remember him as the quintessential family man based on his role in Full House. But if you take a step and think about it, the show was really groundbreaking. It was a widower dad raising his 3 daughters with his 2 male best friends and really challenged the norm of what a traditional family was. Do you think that he realized the impact that he was having by playing that role of Danny Tanner?
I mean, we talked about it so much over the years about it. And I think when it was happening for him, he wasn't appreciating the tone. And he wasn't appreciating the impact that it was having. But as time went on, he absolutely knew the impact of it. And he loved it and he embraced it. And, we were in Omaha 3 weeks ago, and the chef of the hotel came up to him and said, you bonded, me and my daughter bonded over your show, and that, I cannot thank you enough.
And you, of course, toured with Bob for 12 years doing stand-up across the country. Describe him as a stand-up in front of a live audience.
He loved the audience, and he was so conscious of the audience, and he gave it his all every night. And he just, part of his thing was interacting with the crowd. And then he would go into his written material and his music stuff. But Bob would come off stage, and he knew if, he could come off stage like the guy in the 3rd row off to the left wasn't really laughing. How did I not get him? What did I say that offended him? He cared so much.
Is there a special memory or perhaps even a joke that you have with him that you might be able to share with us?
So many memories with Bob, but just recently, maybe 3 weeks ago, we're on tour. We're in a city, and the young lady that came to pick us up she was the driver. She got lost at the airport. They were sending a car from a casino we were playing, and she got lost at the airport. Bob called her, and Bob is on the phone, and he's like, "Don't worry, don't move." She had already come upstairs, terrified that she was going to leave Bob Saget. And next thing you know, Bob is taking this lady back down to her car. We get down to the car, and there's a tow truck taking this lady's car. There is a tow truck taking the car, and next thing you know, Bob Saget gives a full wind sprint to the tow truck, and he's like, "Stop the car, I'm Bob, stop it, please." And it was one of the funniest moments you've ever seen, because the tow truck stopped. It's almost as funny as the fact that my mom is walking on a cane in the background.
Right, we're noticing.
But she's doing great. Don't worry about it. She's doing great. But Bob knew her well, too. But Bob stopped the tow truck literally in its tracks, got the car, told the woman to calm down, you're fine. He's like, "I'll drive." Next thing you know, Bob is driving us back to the venue. He's driving to the venue. She's in the back seat with me, and Bob saved the day. So,
and that says so much about him. Anything else, lastly, Mike, that you want people to know about your good friend, or anything that might surprise us even?
Bob, well, when I say Bob actually took care of everybody, you would be shocked at the ability he had with technology. I've toured with him 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it is. I never had to worry about a flight. I never had to worry about a hotel, anything.
And we hope that you and his family certainly are all okay during this time and beyond. Mike Young, we thank you again for your time, and our thoughts are with you and the Saget family. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And, let's honor Bob.
And when we come back, the small plane crashing onto train tracks, how a pilot was rescued seconds before a train barreled in. The heartbreaking discovery of an abandoned baby and the investigation now underway. But up next, the disturbing reality. There were former military service members who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Tonight, Martha Raddatz brings us an in-depth report on how the Pentagon is trying to address extremism in its ranks. Stay with us.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
It was a scary time. In the 70s, you had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there. This was premeditated evil.
You have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I risked my life. I put my family in danger. If I was caught, they would have put a bullet in my head. But it was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do.
Terror plot foiled in Garden City, Kansas.
That would have been one of the most deadly acts of domestic terrorism ever in the United States.
It would have been Oklahoma City.
He put his family, himself in jeopardy for us.
24 hours, assault on the Capitol. The ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming. This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move out. Let's move out.
We're surrounded by people
squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
Hey, Mama. My wife has fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Investigators have revealed that dozens in the mob that stormed the Capitol on January 6 had ties to the U.S. military. The Pentagon is now trying a new effort to address extremism in its ranks. ABC's Martha Raddatz has more on the tough work ahead.
In the early hours of last January 6th, among the thousands listening to Donald Trump on the National Mall, Brian Snow caught my eye.
Why do you have your body armor on?
I have the body armor on for protection. I'm a father of 4 kids, and I've seen a lot of evidence of people being attacked, stabbed, shot for attending a Trump supporter rally, even if they're not Trump supporters.
The Army veteran had driven 12 hours from his Indiana home to attend the Stop the Steal rally.
The president asked for people to come himself, so, that's what we do.
Do you think Joe Biden was legitimately elected president?
No, not even a little bit. January 6th.
Nearly 1 year later, we asked Snow to meet us back in D.C. Despite the more than 60 unsuccessful lawsuits filed by former President Trump and his allies and 0 evidence of widespread voter fraud, Snow is seemingly more convinced than ever that the false claims of a stolen election are real.
If Donald Trump came out tomorrow and said, you know what, Joe Biden won, would you believe him?
I don't. I think that election is so wrought with, so tainted, it doesn't matter what anybody says anymore.
And no argument will convince him otherwise.
If there's not fraud or no worry of fraud, then why do the American people not deserve and get wide open transparency?
They did.
Well, not really.
And while Snow said he did not join the protesters on Capitol Hill after the rally that day and called the violence against police officers unfortunate and appalling, he still defends the dozens of current and former members of the military who participated, temporarily derailing the certification of the election results.
They, like you, took an oath to support and defend the Constitution.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what they were doing in your view?
Yes, absolutely. If that's what they felt that they needed to do to protect the Constitution from enemies both foreign and domestic.
But it's completely opposite of the Constitution itself.
I disagree.
The numbers of veterans on the Hill that day was astonishing. More than 80 of the some 700 facing criminal charges for the assault on the Capitol had a military background.
It was gut-wrenching to see them storming the building and to do so as if they had the authority to do so. It goes against everything we swore an oath to protect.
David Smith, a former Navy medic who served in Afghanistan, was working near the Capitol that day.
So it was literally watching what felt like democracy falling, honestly. So it was pretty scary.
And sobering for the Pentagon. In the wake of the attack, outlining new guidelines and definitions for prohibited extremist activities, beginning for the first time at recruiting centers.
Do you have any new ties to or association to any extremist or hate groups now? No. So weeding out extremism or extremists right now at this stage is very important because this is where everything is going to start at. The people that's coming in right now are going to be the people that's leading us in about 20 years, 15 years down the line.
Commanders can also look at service members' social media history once a red flag is raised, and the guidance includes what constitutes dissemination of extremist materials online, such as posting, liking, or retweeting. But so many say there's still so much more that needs to be done.
When we talk about veterans and their willingness to serve, they have an undying patriotism. And when politicians can manipulate that, that's going to give them a lot of power. We've got to find some way to reach these veterans, and they're not falling into these groups where they are being indoctrinated and they're being radicalized and they're doing what they did on January 6th.
And with the number of extremist crimes committed by veterans even outside of January 6th jumping significantly in the past decade, the worry is without even further action, it will only get worse.
Our thanks to Martha for that. Still ahead here on Prime. If you love brutally frigid, potentially life-threatening, can't be outside for long unless risking frostbite kind of weather, depending on where you live, we have the forecast for you. The big legal victory down under for tennis superstar Novak Djokovic. Massive news in the video game world. We take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day from Major League Baseball. History is made. Kudos to the Yankees and big congrats to Rachel Balkovec, the first female manager in affiliated professional baseball history.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new Hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
It was a scary time.
In the 70s, you had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there.
This was premeditated evil.
We have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
World News Now.
And America This Morning.
The best new videos.
Breaking news overnight.
Your money and concerns about inflation.
The pandemic is not over.
The stories people are talking about.
You don't want to shave your legs? Don't. I was going to say. And what to expect in the day ahead.
From the top of the world, baby! ABC World News Now and America This Morning.
Weekday morning starting at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Up all night to keep you up to date.
This is American history. A violent white mob, a brutal attack. 300 black Americans killed right here in America. Now, it is time to uncover Tulsa's buried truth. The gripping story brought to light in a new podcast from ABC News. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run with.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us. Welcome back, everyone. Now to a huge merger in the video game industry. Take-Two Interactive, maker of the wildly popular Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, is buying Zynga, which makes hits like Farmville and Words with Friends. We take a look by the numbers. The merger announced today is valued at nearly $13 billion. Take-Two said it expects to save about $100 million a year from the deal within the first 2 years. The Take-Two CEO said the combined company will have more than 1 billion users and that they'll now have strong position in the mobile market, which is the fastest growing segment of the global video game industry. 155 million units of Grand Theft Auto 5 have been sold, according to company data, making it one of the best-selling video games of all time. And the video game industry as a whole has been booming, especially during the pandemic. Consumer spending on game software jumped roughly 23% in 2020 from the year before, according to Newzoo. That's when much of our economy was contracting. Video gaming is now a $180 billion industry, and with the metaverse, the potential for the gaming industry has never been higher. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime tonight. He was a member of one of America's wealthiest families, but was recently convicted of murder. And tonight, a major update in the tumultuous Robert Durst saga. And our conversation with the voice of Bart Simpson, who happens to be a woman. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
Stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
It's an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
911. My wife has fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart that he did this.
It's the time of suspicion.
The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
The mayor of New York returning to the scene of one of the most devastating fires in the city's history. Officials now announcing a change in the death toll.
We have 17 lost, 9 are adults and 8 are children.
That number expected to rise, with more than a dozen fighting for their lives in the hospital.
My cousin, I heard that his 3 children passed away, but we don't know where the wife is. I don't know where's my cousin and his wife. Yeah, now I'm trying to go to the hospitals and look for them.
The fire tore through this high-rise Bronx apartment building Sunday just before 11 a.m.
I dropped on my knees and started to pray to God and ask God, please help us.
Officials say a space heater malfunctioned, causing a mattress to burst into flames.
But that's the unanswered question at the heart of the investigation, the fire marshal's investigation. If these doors were self-closing, then why was the apartment door left open?
I am not guilty. I did not kill Susan Berman.
Convicted killer and New York real estate heir Robert Durst has died.
It was only 4 months ago here in L.A. Robert Durst was found guilty of murdering his friend Susan Berman 2 decades ago. Then in October, he was sentenced to life in prison. The rest of his life only lasted a few months. Durst was linked to a series of mysterious deaths and disappearances. It was Berman's murder that led to his conviction. At the trial, he appeared frail. He was in a wheelchair, claiming numerous illnesses. Now Durst is dead at the age of 78.
A shocking video shows the moment a train slams into a small plane that crashed on its tracks in California. Don't worry, the pilot survived. The pilot was the sole occupant on board and was pulled from the aircraft by Los Angeles police moments before that train hit it. The Los Angeles Police Department posted body camera footage of the incident as it was unfolding.
At that point, I never actually turned to see the train. Just focused on getting the pilot out and getting away from that aircraft, since there was a lot of aircraft fuel on the ground.
According to police, the plane had lost power, and that's what caused the aircraft to crash onto the tracks.
And I said, please do not tell me it was a baby. And she grabbed my shoulder and said yes.
Joe Embriawi is recalling the moment Hobbs police asked to review security video from his store after a baby was believed to have been thrown in it.
On surveillance video around 2 p.m. on Friday, a woman can be seen dumping a black garbage bag into a dumpster behind some stores in Hobbs, New Mexico, near the Texas border. At 8 that night, some people looking through the dumpster found the bag, opened it up, and found the baby still alive. Police tracked down the mother, an 18-year-old now facing felony charges. Incredibly, after 6 hours in a garbage bag in a dumpster, the baby is stable.
New Mexico, like every other state in the country, has a safe haven law that would have allowed the mother to hand over the baby at a place like a hospital or a fire station.
firing day in the NFL now that the last regular season games are done. In Minnesota, head coach Mike Zimmer and general manager Rick Spielman are both out. The Zimmer firing isn't a surprise. The Spielman one is.
Rick Spielman even had been doing legwork, making calls on head coaching candidates last week, making plans for the organization going forward and find the right head coach.
Also out, Dolphins head coach Brian Flores, and both the head coach and GM of the Chicago Bears. The IRS says tax season will begin on January 24th. Treasury Department officials are warning of delays to refunds and other taxpayer services because of COVID-19 resource challenges. They say filing electronically will help.
Well, of course, it is that time of year, but it doesn't make it any easier. Brutal cold is making its way across the country tonight. In some places, the coldest air in years. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is tracking the frigid temperatures. Ginger, I got up early. I was taking my son to school today, and it was just take your breath away kind of frigid cold.
Yeah, we'll shave about 20 degrees in the feels like off, and that's what tomorrow morning will be like. So extra bundled if you're going to school again. You know, we are talking about the coldest daytime temperatures in 3 years, from Baltimore to Philadelphia to New York City and Boston. That's why this is a big deal. A lot of us have not seen this cold of a day, meaning the high temperature will be just that chilly. It's not going to, be better by the afternoon. The sun can't do it this time of year. So looking at the wind chill alerts, they stretch all the way from Wisconsin right through western New York and northeastern Pennsylvania. Some of these wind chill alerts are for wind chills as low as 20 below zero. They go up to Maine, of course, because once you get into the mountains, you start elevating, you get even colder. Burlington feels like 24 below tomorrow morning. Detroit 2 below, 5 below in Chicago and New York. So yes, we will start the day sub-zero. But watch this. This is really impressive and why it is going to feel even worse. Boston, for example, does not see a wind chill tomorrow throughout the day, even in the afternoon, that goes above zero. So they will have a minus in front of their number all day. Lindsay.
Oh, wow. No relief for them. And Ginger, even though we're talking about bitter cold in January, there's new data in today about how December was a month for the record in terms of warmth.
Yes, and that's part of why I think this will feel extra appalling for people that do not like cold, because the United States had the warmest December on record. Those records go back to the 1880s, and this is just one of those times when we say, wow, that was striking. And every state combined, right? An average temperature so far above average. So to have something come in and actually not shock us, but it will feel shocking, be like January should, it's going to certainly feel different here.
That whiplash for us all. Okay, Ginger Z, our thanks to you. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Next to the legal victory down under for tennis superstar Novak Djokovic, a judge sided with him in his battle to defend his Australian Open championship. But James Longman has more on why the judge may not get the last word.
Tonight, a victory for Novak Djokovic, even as officials weigh a judge's decision to overturn the Australian government's cancellation of his visa over vaccine requirements. Telling his fans on social media, thank you all for standing with me through all this and encouraging me to stay strong. Supporters swarming this car believed to be carrying Djokovic shortly after he was released from an immigration detention hotel where he'd been held for days after arriving in Melbourne. It's still unclear whether the top-ranked tennis star will be able to defend his Australian Open title for a record 21 Grand Slams, because tonight an immigration minister is considering whether to block him again. In court documents, his lawyers are arguing that he'd tested positive in December, and after 2 weeks, he had not had a fever or respiratory symptoms of COVID-19 in the last 72 hours, which they say met the entry criteria for Australia's Department of Home Affairs. But video of Djokovic maskless at a public event after that positive test is now raising questions. Whether he knew of his COVID status at the time isn't known. Some in Melbourne, which has faced strict COVID protocols, are not sympathetic for Djokovic, a vocal vaccine critic.
They should abide by the rules, and I think this demonstration is ludicrous.
James Longman joins us now. James, what's the next in the investigation?
Well, the immigration minister has said it's within his power and his discretion whether or not to re-cancel Djokovic's visa. Now, it's unclear whether he'll do that or not, because Djokovic will then get banned essentially from Australia for 3 years. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on these videos that have come to light of Djokovic at an event with children after his lawyers say he tested positive for COVID. It might be that the Australian immigration minister wants to look into that further. But I just think beyond tennis, this just raises questions about people who are not vaccinated for whatever reason, people who've chosen not to be vaccinated. We all know them. Just how will they be able to engage in a post-COVID world?
And a lot of people are upset, saying that he should not have been given any kind of special treatment or special favors. So we'll see how this all plays out. It's great to have you in studio tonight, and you'll be in this spot tomorrow night, so we look forward to that.
Fingers
James
crossed.
Baldwin, thank you very much. Well, you have certainly heard the voice of our next guest, as she has spent the past 3 decades bringing to life one of television's most iconic characters. Take a listen.
Cool. Personalized plates. Barclay, Barry, Bert, Bort. Oh, come on, Bort?
Nancy Cartwright is the unlikely source behind the voice of Bart Simpson, and in her new audiobook, I'm Still a 10-Year-Old Boy, she pulls back the curtain on her career and shares the many lessons that she learned along the way. Nancy Cartwright, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
So the famed show The Simpsons has undoubtedly earned its place in TV history as the longest-running scripted show with more than 30 years on the air. What's it like to be a part of a show that's such an American institution?
It's just, it just continues to wow and amaze me, to be honest with you.
Having some technical difficulties with that interview. We're going to try and get that back on for you. Before we go tonight, the image of the day. Do we have that? A Palestinian man standing on his camel on a beach in Gaza during a gorgeous sunset. We'll be right back.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
I understood now that this was about more than Emmett. People had to face my son. They would have to see their own responsibility in pushing for an end to this evil.
The realness of it was understood. It was the story of what could happen to a young black man.
Mamie had to brave the racial hostility.
Mamie Till Mobley transformed America. She was black girl magic and black excellence rolled into one.
Let the world see. Thursday night right after Women of the Movement on ABC.
The ladies you love, the hottest topics happening now. There's only one place to find it all.
You guys are having the hard conversations. I love The View.
The most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It was a scary time. In the 70s, you had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there.
This was premeditated evil.
You have this clock. This person is going to do this again. It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
When you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, darling, I'll be by your side. I'll be there by your side. I'll be everything you wanted. I'll be there by your side. If you need a light to shine in, hold out your hand, let the stars shoot again, let the light shine in through the dark.
Good morning, America.
ABC News honored winner of 9 Edward R. Murrow Awards, more than any other network, including winning for the 3rd straight year the award for overall excellence in television. ABC News is America's #1 news source. With so much at stake, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 newscast and the #1 program on television.
Christopher Steele.
The guy who picked a fight with 2 presidents, and he's lived to tell the tale.
That now infamous dossier.
Supposedly a tape showing prostitutes hired by Donald Trump urinating on a bed, and would be quite a tape if it in fact existed.
I said take out the PP tape.
It quickly became a question of how much of this was accurate.
This is the stuff of movies.
A lot of this is the stuff of movies. A story of epic proportions.
Phony stuff.
It's a bunch of crap.
It changed history.
When you think of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, it's the Jen Shah show.
She was the prime housewife.
Then suddenly, we've seen a lot of things on The Real Housewives, but we've never seen anyone be arrested.
Jen Shah pled not guilty to the charges that she's facing.
I don't know if she knew that she was going to be arrested that day. But those braids, honey, those braids look good.
Shah amazing.
Wild. Unpredictable rich woman. Sign me up.
Welcome back, everyone. We do apologize for the technical difficulties. Earlier today, we spoke with Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson. Take a listen. Well, you have certainly heard the voice of our next guest, as she has spent the past 3 decades bringing to life one of television's most iconic characters. Take a listen.
Cool. Personalized plates. Barclay, Barry, Bert, Bort. Oh, come on, Bort?
Nancy Cartwright is the unlikely source behind the voice of Bart Simpson, and in her new audiobook, I'm Still a 10-Year-Old Boy, she pulls back the curtain on her career and shares the many lessons that she learned along the way. Nancy Cartwright, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
So the famed show The Simpsons has undoubtedly earned its place in TV history as the longest-running scripted show with more than 30 years on the air. What's it like to be a part of a show that's such an American institution?
It's just, it just continues to wow and amaze me, to be honest with you. 30-plus years, like we're moving into come March, we will move into recording season 33, and that's crazy.
Wow.
Nobody else has done that.
But when you were looking to be the voice of a 10-year-old boy, or how did that actually happen? Because it seems like they might have tried to cast somebody who was a male and tried to cast somebody who was very young. And I'm just curious how you ended up kind of being a part of that.
Yeah. No, it was, I was told about the audition. They were looking for somebody to play the voice of an 8-year-old middle child, which we know now is Lisa Simpson. So it wasn't really a show. They told me it was just these little vignettes that connected the show to the commercials, and then back again from the commercial back into the Tracy Ullman show. And I showed up, but there on the table was the audition piece for Lisa Simpson. But next to it was a picture of Bart, and he was described as a 10-year-old school-hating underachiever and proud of it. And it's just like, oh, you have my heart, Bart. And I could not do Lisa. I had to do Bart. And so I went in, shook hands with Matt Groening, and I said, I know you've got me down to read for Lisa, but I want to read for Bart. Do you mind? And no, he said, no, that's fine. And blah, 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 and the rest is history.
Your original memoir came out back in 2000, and this latest release is the audiobook version with new material from the last 20 years of your life and career. So what's different for a listener who's hearing this book and not just reading it?
Well, one thing that's really different is that I've got clips from Meryl Streep and J.K. Simmons and Elizabeth Taylor, Mickey Rooney, some other celebs that have been on the show. I've got actual clips of when they guest starred on the show. And I talk about when they showed up and they got behind the mic to do their characters. I also have some clips of Dawes Butler and him talking to 19-year-old Nancy Cartwright, and also me responding to him. And I'm telling you, when I came across those tapes, Lindsay, it's like, wow, I don't sound like myself. I sound like, I don't know, I don't physically, I don't sound like myself at all. But so you get that, and I go into more detail about raising 2 children and being a grandmother, and also I give some tips at the end of the book that I call 6 salient steps to successful survival. And hopefully when people listen to those simple things that you can do, like do what you love and, trust your instincts, be a professional, surround yourself with people that, respect what you do, set like a good example, and kind of along that line, trust your instincts, change is possible, that people will finish the book saying, wow, man, maybe if those were her successful actions, maybe that could help me too.
I imagine being a grandmother, you have to do the voices a lot for the friends, the grandkids' friends, no?
Actually, to be honest with you, my friends never ask me to do the voice. I'm just Nancy. And my kids were the same way. In fact, when I tried to do some voices for my kids and telling a story like, once upon a time, it'd be like, no, Mommy, no, just be Mommy.
And you mentioned some of the star-studded cast making appearances in the audiobook, like Meryl Streep, Danny DeVito, Elizabeth Taylor. Any memorable stories that stick out that you can share with us now?
Yeah, well, one story that I have is like Anne Hathaway came in, and I just adore her. She guest starred twice on the show, and she played one of the shows. She played this assistant to Krusty the Clown, and she sings this song. And I gotta tell you, it's like when we do singing episodes, which are my favorite ones, by the way. I just love the musicals. But when Anne came in, they hadn't written the song yet. The lyrics were there, but she just made up off the top of her head the music for this song, and she sang it full out like she was just reading music. And I was so impressed. She ended up getting an Emmy for that. She was amazing.
How much of it is improv, or how much of that is improv, or you are actually reading script the whole time?
Well, when we do it without the celebrities, just when we do it regular, I like to do it the way that it's written, because the writers are so amazing and they've spent all this time writing this particular script. But at some point, after you've done 3 takes, 3-4 takes, I can kind of, they're fair with me and fair with everybody else to do a little improv.
Well, very fun talking to you, Nancy Cartwright, everyone. Her book, I'm Still a 10-Year-Old Boy, is available now on Audible. I think that people are going to enjoy actually hearing your voice deliver the book more than reading it themselves. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you coming on.
Lindsay, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
And once again, everybody, I'm Lindsay Davis. We thank you so much for streaming with us. We're monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. We're seeing new images tonight from inside that horrific apartment fire here in New York City that left at least 17 people dead, including 8 children. Officials believe most of the victims died from smoke inhalation. A space heater is believed to have ignited the fire, and 2 doors that failed to close may have allowed thick smoke to fill the halls and stairwells. TMZ, which first broke the news of icon Betty White's death, is now reporting that she suffered a stroke 6 days earlier. The cause of death in the coroner report, they claim, is listed as cerebrovascular accident. Now, her agent tells ABC News that he was not aware of a stroke and therefore believes that it was minor. White died at home less than 3 weeks before what would have been her 100th birthday. And news of a major medical breakthrough. For the first time, doctors at the University of Maryland Medical Center say that they've transplanted a genetically altered pig heart into a living human. Doctors say David Bennett is doing well several days after surgery. He could not get a human transplant. Doctors are closely watching for any signs of organ rejection. But we do begin this hour with the record hospitalizations across the country. They are taking a toll on families, schools, and workplaces, talking, of course, about COVID-19. Stephanie Ramos has more.
Tonight, the number of COVID-positive Americans in hospitals now reaching a new pandemic record. More than 141,000 patients pushing hospitals to the brink of collapse.
This surge that we're experiencing now is the largest volume of patients that have been the sickest. So in many ways, this has been the worst.
In New Jersey, the number of patients in the ICU and needing ventilators doubling since Christmas to levels not seen since May of 2020.
We're in the thick of this latest fight against the Omicron tsunami washing across the state.
And now deaths are climbing too. 1,500 Americans are dying of COVID every day, a 34% increase in the last week. And even with a less severe Omicron variant, the sheer number of infections is overwhelming hospitals.
Our health systems were just never designed for an epidemic of this magnitude. And so unfortunately, we will bring our health systems to collapse if we don't figure out a way to keep transmission down in the community.
But with infections spiking, at least 1 in 4 hospitals across the country report they're facing a critical staffing shortage. It's why California is changing its rules to allow asymptomatic healthcare workers who test positive to return without isolating or testing negative. But the nurses union and other workers are calling that move dangerous.
We're in this industry to care for others. You know, that's the root word right there. And yet we are asking to put others at potential harm.
And in Los Angeles, there is worry of staffing shortages as schools reopen tomorrow. Students and staff have to test negative, but 62,000 tests have already come back positive.
People are having a hard time. People are afraid. This is a tough situation to be in.
Tonight, new COVID cases among children spiking to 580,000 cases, up 78% in the last week. In Chicago, classes canceled for a 4th day after a stalemate between the city and teachers. The union accusing the mayor of refusing to compromise on expanded testing and remote learning.
The mayor is being relentless, but she's being relentlessly stupid. She's being relentlessly stubborn.
As schools and workplaces push for higher quality masks, the latest research done before Omicron shows the dramatic difference an upgraded mask can make. Studies estimated for 2 people wearing cloth masks, it can take about a half hour to spread the virus from one infected person to an uninfected person in the same room. If they are both wearing surgical masks, it can take about an hour. And if they're both wearing N95 masks, it can take about 25 hours to cause an infection.
The higher grade masks are really going to protect people because they not only have a more proper fit, they have a better seal, but they also have a better filtration device, and they have an electrostatic potential to actually repel away the virus.
So important to have the proper mask. Our thanks to Stephanie Ramos. With the Omicron variant surging, countries around the world are navigating the trade-offs between COVID restrictions and personal freedoms. But in China, where the reported COVID death count is just a small fraction of ours, millions remain under strict lockdown. This as the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing is quickly approaching. ABC's Maggie Rulli has this report.
This past weekend, the Omicron variant arrived on Beijing's doorstep as it prepares to host the 2022 Winter Olympics in just a matter of weeks. China's first local Omicron cluster was detected in the port city of Tianjin, home to 14 million people and just 80 miles from the capital. Citywide testing was ordered immediately in a desperate scramble to contain another outbreak. And in another major Chinese city, now a ghost town. Only this isn't 2020. This lockdown is happening right now. Xi'an, a city of 13 million, has been under one of the country's strictest lockdowns since Wuhan for 3 weeks now. To carry out their so-called zero COVID strategy, Chinese authorities at times seem to dismiss other grave medical concerns. Officials firing personnel at a hospital in Xi'an and publicly apologizing after a woman was reportedly denied medical attention at the hospital because they said her COVID test was no longer valid. She was 8 months pregnant and tragically lost the baby as she was left sitting outside the hospital.
When you are sort of privileging one disease over another, you can end up causing a lot of damage because you're not actually dealing with other health threats.
Incredibly, China has reported no COVID deaths in the past 11 months. But these restrictions come because of the 2,000 plus cases reported in Xi'an since early December. It's China's largest outbreak since the early days of the pandemic, and officials say they're still tackling the Delta variant. Residents strictly confined to their homes, not allowed to leave even for essentials. Officials seen delivering food straight to their doors. The only activity seemingly allowed, the masses lining up to get tested, millions of tests administered, meant to prevent any case from spreading and creating more outbreaks. Xi'an officials announcing last week they had reached what they called, quote, basically zero new transmissions, declaring that outbreak contained. But But today, they said the lockdown won't end until there are no cases for 14 days.
There is no zero COVID on this planet. You have to recognize that and not fool yourselves into thinking that you can do this forever without massive negative, dire consequences on the ability of the population in China to flourish.
One fallout, the Chinese government dramatically slowing down to a growth rate of 0.2%. Since the start of the pandemic, China has essentially closed its borders, and those who break the rules are sometimes subject to unusual punishments. This video shows police parading 4 men in hazmat suits with placards around their neck in the southern city of Jinxi, which borders Vietnam. They're accused of illegally bringing foreigners into China. But now, for the first time in nearly 2 years, China's loosening its border restrictions while still trying to maintain zero COVID, even as new cases spring uncomfortably close to the Olympic Games sites. 25,000 people from all over the world are expected to come, but visitors will be kept in a bubble and are required to take PCR tests every day. Beijing authorities even warning residents not to help Olympic vehicles that may get into road accidents so the populations don't mix. But now, with Beijing battling the Omicron variant in its own backyard, some are questioning if the zero COVID policy is really the best way forward.
COVID is becoming much more manageable, so it doesn't warrant this type of lockdown, blunt force type of measure every time that there are cases. And it's something that increasingly is being shown to be futile.
The International Olympics Committee and the Chinese government say they're confident they can keep any outbreaks under control. And for now, they appear determined that the games go on.
Our thanks to Maggie for that. As the Omicron variant continues to surge, health officials advise to keep those masks on in public spaces. Some are even opting for 2 masks for extra protection. But dermatologists, as a result, are starting to see an uptick in skin irritation as a result of mask wearing, like maskne, that's acne from masks, or also eczema and some other concerns. To discuss more, we bring in Dr. Janine Downey, dermatologist at Mountainside and Overlook Hospitals and co-host of The Gist Show on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Downey.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. How are you?
I am well. Glad to be talking with you today. Let's start out with maskne. Tell us what you're seeing and what can be done about it.
I guess the bottom line is that a lot of my patients are coming in, and now that they're really putting their masks on a lot more and they're using medical grade masks, they're seeing breakouts of papules and pustules and cysts all over the lower part of their face. So the friction, the sweating under the mask, the rebreathing into the mask is all causing the maskne. And it's all over people's faces, around their mouths and the beginning of their neck. And so people are really, really upset. So what I'm recommending is topical anti-acne medications, oral anti-acne medications, sometimes chemical peels. I always tell them not to pick like that woman is picking right now. I tell people not to pick at all. And sometimes we need to get laser involved as well. So that's one of the things I'm seeing. Also seeing a lot more hair bumps, and that is in men and women. And that can be treated with everything I just mentioned, plus laser hair removal.
And I think some people keep reusing their masks, and in many times that's just not a good idea, right? You need to make sure that you're washing the masks and throwing them away in some cases.
Right. So the reusable disposable masks, like this one, the KN95, I tell everybody, use it and throw it away. So in the medical profession,
one time.
we're switching just one time. And we're switching 2 to 3 times a day. Many people are wearing them for the full day, the KN95s. Those are the ones that are more gentle for your ears. If you have little ears like mine, they tend to stay on nicely. But I tell everybody, once you use it once, throw it away. Don't reuse it. And then if you're using a cloth mask, wash it with actually a gentle cleanser, but actually wash it thoroughly every single night that you're using it. That way you're not getting all that added bacteria on the actual mask, because that bacteria can lead to, I'm particularly seeing a lot of flares of rosacea. That's the redness. 20 million Americans suffer from red patches and redness of their skin. And then alcohol, stress, cold weather, hot weather, all of those things can make it worse. So right now we're suffering with the cold weather. So a lot of people, their rosacea is getting worse and worse and worse.
So you tell me if this is a bad idea, but this is potentially a cost-saving tip for those at home. This is what I do because I have the makeup on underneath the mask and everything. So often I just put tissue paper right under it. Would you say that that's a good idea or that's not a good idea?
As long as your mask is fitting you snugly above right here and you have it properly, kind of lassoed on your ears, that's actually not a bad idea at all because less makeup will rub off onto your actual mask. So I think that's actually a very, very good idea. And so I tell everybody the same thing. If you want to preserve your lipstick, that's another thing that you can do is put on a piece of tissue as kind of a buffer. But for those people, those viewers of yours that smoke weed or vape, they're going to have more chapped lips than the general population. And chapped lips are another thing we're seeing with all these maskne and mask complaints right now is the super, super, super chapped lips. So it's the new year, it's January, time to quit.
Or just get some chapstick or Vaseline, I guess, too, right? So
right.
You also say that masking can exacerbate other skin issues like hair bumps, eczema, and rosacea. Tell us why and also some possible solutions for that.
Okay, so I was mentioning rosacea in terms of the redness, so everybody should be wearing sunscreen every single day. And if you know you have a trigger like alcohol, then maybe decrease your alcohol intake right now. In terms of eczema flares, the friction and the rebreathing really is aggravating people's eczema all over their faces and their necks. And so I'm giving people prescription immunomodulators. I'm telling them to use oil-free moisturizers. I'm telling them not to pick because they can pick off whole sections of their skin, which is not good at all. And then I'm telling them sometimes some of them actually need oral medications to help them. That's how bad it's getting.
And you started out by saying, to wear the sunscreen. I think that a lot of people may be under the impression that, look, half of my face is covered with the mask. I don't really need to put sunscreen under that. Not the case.
No, not at all. So I tell everybody the same thing. The mask is not providing you any SPF at all.
Appreciate that. So we can have that shiny, glowy skin like you, Dr. Janine Downey. Thank you so much for all the tips and advice.
Thank you kindly for having me, Lindsay. Take care of yourself.
Now to the sudden death of actor and comedian Bob Saget at just 65 years old. He, of course, gained fame as the lovable father from Full House and later as the host of America's Funniest Home Videos. He was found dead inside a hotel room in Florida over the weekend. The medical examiner says they have found no evidence of foul play or drug use, and determining the cause of death could take weeks. ABC's Victor Oquendo has more as the tributes continue to pour in for the TV icon.
Steph, I think it's wonderful that you wanted to throw Comet a birthday party, but did you have to invite every dog on the block? Does anybody here have to use the hydrant?
He earned the nickname America's Dad, a quick-witted actor, comic, and host with a multitude of talents. Bob Saget won hearts as Danny Tanner.
Did you handcuff my daughters together?
Boy, nothing gets by you.
A widowed dad raising 3 daughters in San Francisco on ABC's long-running sitcom Full House.
Believe me, honey, you are a beautiful, normal child, and you are going to grow up to be a beautiful, normal adult.
You promise?
I promise.
The comedic legend passing away in a hotel in Orlando where he was in the middle of a comedy tour that began in September.
Going to be for a male patient. Callers advising it's an obvious death, stating a security officer found the guest not breathing, no pulse.
The circumstances of his death remain unclear, but detectives say they found no signs of foul play or drug use. In his final tweet posted yesterday, Saget writing, "Love tonight's show. I had no idea I did a 2-hour set tonight. I'm happily addicted again to this." Ahead of the tour, Saget reflected on his career in comedy with our Jacksonville affiliate, WJXX.
It's not about money. If you're doing stuff to be famous, that's not the answer. You got to do it because you love it with all your heart.
His love for craft, pushing others to follow in his footsteps. Tim Wilkins opened for Saget during his last set.
I asked, "Are you still enjoying this?" And he said, I think I'm enjoying it now more than ever.
Saget began his career as a stand-up comedian. His humor, often raunchy.
But I love my mom, and you can too.
And about face from his more family-friendly gigs. For decades, bringing joy into millions of homes as the host of America's Funniest Home Videos.
Honey, you know that migraine headache you had this morning? Well, it'll be home in an hour.
But no role more iconic than Mr. Tanner.
I'd like to get the girls to bed before Good Morning America.
His sudden death shocking fans and colleagues. "I am broken. I am gutted," wrote his Full House co-star John Stamos. "I am in complete and utter shock. I will never, ever have another friend like him. I love you so much, Bobby." Candice Bure saying Bob was one of the best human beings I've ever known in my life. I loved him so much. Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen echoing Bob was the most loving, compassionate, and generous man. Bob Saget was 65 years old.
That father figure on and off the screen. Our thanks to Victor for that. Now to that new video from Alec Baldwin insisting he's complying with the investigation into the shooting death of Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer on the set of his film Rust, even though he has yet to turn over his cell phone to authorities. Kaylee Hartung has the very latest.
This morning, Alec Baldwin shutting down claims he isn't cooperating with the investigation into the shooting that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins on a New Mexico film set in October.
Any suggestion that I am not complying with requests or orders or demands or search warrants about my phone, that's a lie.
Last month, Santa Fe authorities obtaining a warrant to search and seize the actor's cell phone in an effort to conduct a forensic download of current and possibly deleted images, videos, text messages, emails, and any private messages from his social media accounts regarding the production of the movie Rust. Baldwin, who lives in New York, is now explaining why weeks later he has not yet turned over his phone to officials.
They've got to go through the state you live in. That is a process that takes time. They have to specify what exactly they want. You can't just go through your phone and take, your photos or your love letters to your wife or what have you. I really don't know, but of course, we are 1,000% going to comply with all that.
At the center of the investigation, how live ammunition ended up on the Rust set and got loaded into the gun given to Baldwin. In this latest video, Baldwin says he's committed to finding out the truth to honor Hutchins.
That's what I'm working toward, insisting on, demanding that the organizations involved in this investigation do everything in their power to find out what really happened.
Our thanks to Kaylee for that. And now to the Hollywood Awards ceremony, unlike any we've seen or perhaps haven't seen in decades. Talking about the 79th annual Golden Globes, they were handed out in Beverly Hills last night, but instead of a global telecast and red carpet fanfare, the winners came via Twitter. ABC's Chris Connolly has this story.
The stars, the sizzle, the scrolling? Last night's Golden Globes, an award show in semi-exile. Once it was an Oscars harbinger, renowned for red carpet glamour. A few good laughs from the stage.
Gravity is nominated for Best Film. It's the story of how George Clooney would rather float away into space and die than spend one more minute with a woman his own age.
But the glittery Drinktastic Kudo cast taken off the airwaves for 2022, put into timeout for a year after long-simmering allegations of self-dealing and shocking details about its voters brought to light.
They have received, perks for being members because that is what the Hollywood machine does in order to secure those nominations.
Last year's hosts Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, horrified by the revelation that the Hollywood Foreign Press Association had 0 black voters.
The Hollywood Foreign Press Association is made up of around 90 international no-black journalists.
With scorn raining down across the entertainment industry, the HFPA making moves to diversify its membership, tightening its anti-graft regs, its efforts thus far viewed with side-eye and skepticism in Hollywood.
They have amended their bylaws that the members are no longer allowed to receive gifts from studios and other networks. If you ask the Hollywood Foreign Press, they've done everything that they were supposed to do. If you speak to studios and publicists, that's not really the case.
So before an untelevised, unstreamed Sunday night gathering of 200 or so, the Globe's winners in movies and TV categories were announced and proclaimed one tweet at a time on social media. While Globes for Television honored Hacks, Succession, and Squid Game's Oh Young-soo, those cited for film included Will Smith, Best Actor in a Drama for King Richard, and Nicole Kidman, Best Actress in a Drama for Being the Ricardos. West Side Story won 3 Globes for Best Comedy Musical and for actresses Ariana DeBose and Rachel Zegler.
Our thanks to Chris Connolly for that. 5 former college students are suing 16 of the nation's top universities, alleging they have been colluding to purposefully inflate the cost of tuition. Several Ivy League schools and other top-tier schools like Rice, Emory, and Duke were among those named. The suit claims 9 of the institutions made admissions decisions based on a student's family's financial status, and that university decisions often disproportionately impacted disadvantaged students. And still to come, how one mom ultimately was able to get this billboard made that read, "Date my daughter."
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
It was a scary time in the 70s. You had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there. This was premeditated evil.
You have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I risked my life. I put my family in danger. If I was caught, they would have put a bullet in my head. But it was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do.
Terror plot foiled in Garden City, Kansas.
That would have been one of the most deadly acts of domestic terrorism ever in the United States. It would have been Oklahoma City.
He put his family, himself, in jeopardy for us.
24 hours, assault on the Capitol. The ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu. Now streaming. This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people
squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
National parks are incredibly safe places. A crime will happen.
Hey, my wife has fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Welcome back, everyone. We're tracking several headlines around the world. Myanmar's ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi was sentenced to 4 more years in prison today by a Myanmar court, finding her guilty of inciting dissent and violating coronavirus restrictions. She was arrested by the country's military after a coup in 2021. The case is one of a dozen being brought by the military since they seized power last February. In Brazil, 2 children were reunited with their loved ones after surviving a deadly rock collapse, and a warning: the video that shows the collapse is disturbing and viewer discretion is advised. Take a look at the moment the collapse happened and tourist boats rushed to escape. I think we're obviously having some difficulties there, but multiple people are dead. Dozens were injured. According to officials, heavy rainfall in the region could have loosened the rock face. And Uganda's schools reopened today, marking the end of the longest pandemic lockdown measure in the world. Schools there had been shut down for more than 83 weeks. That's almost 2 years, impacting more than 10 million students. Some classes reopened briefly in February before shutting down once again as COVID cases there have been on the rise. The country's president warns a new lockdown is still possible. And finally tonight, how one mother took the role of matchmaker to a whole new level. Amid the big city billboards, this one sticks out. A giant photo of Molly Davis with the message, "Date my daughter." And this is Molly's mom, Beth, who also doubles as her wingman.
One of the things I've always told my kids is you don't get what you don't ask for. So I put it out to the universe, please, let's give Molly some help.
But this is not a case of an overzealous future mother-in-law. Beth discovered Wingman, a dating app for friends and family hoping to play matchmaker, after she learned she may not have much time left. Sharing on her profile, "A year ago, I found out that breast cancer had extensively spread to my bones. I'm now on a mission to find a good man for my daughter to love." She describes her daughter as a ray of sunshine who tries to improve the lives of everyone around her and has strong determination to balance fun, fitness, and new experiences. "I want to know I'm leaving her in good hands."
Molly has been my wingman, taking me to my doctor's appointments. I can't say enough about that, what it meant to me.
Mom, I wouldn't have it any other way,
A story so bittersweet, it caught the attention of Wingman founder Tina Wilson.
She's just brave and feisty. I instantly loved her, and I said, we have to help.
She helped by providing this gigantic megaphone of sorts, a Times Square ad, which has already elicited dozens of responses.
It allows me to have the fun of looking through these lovely men's profiles and choosing a nice fit for my daughter.
I want someone kind. I always say that you and Dad reach for kindness first.
I'm hoping that people can see that you have joy and you have your family, and every day is a gift.
All those single, kind men out there, Molly is looking. That is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.